A TV adaptation of Jacqueline Wilson's book My Mum Tracy Beaker was always a thought in my head when the book first released, as I never thought it would actually happen. I'll be honest with you, I was quite excited when the series had first been announced, but I was still hesitant regarding continuity and how the series would be like, especially since CBBC is a very different channel now after the airing of Tracy Beaker Returns, with the channel not really stepping into that much drama like that anymore, though I still stayed optimistic. The trailer came out and I was very excited, but I still wasn't too sure what the demographic of the show would be when this trailer first aired. I finally sat down and watched all 3 episodes back to back, and I absolutely adored this show. Whilst the show could have had the 6-episode format to fatten out the pacing, I definitely overall enjoyed the series and the mature topics it presents. CBBC really knew what audience they were making it for, which were one of my worries originally, attempting to cater this to the younger demographic who watch the current show in the franchise, The Dumping Ground. And whilst that show is alright, it pales in comparison to the previous 2 and this one. Episode 1 begins with Tracy's daughter Jess nicely letting us in on what Tracy's been up to after the events of Tracy Beaker Returns. It's honestly so lovely that the writers care about the continuity of the character, and although it is a very tight squeeze with the birth of Jess, I'm not entirely bothered. Tracy taking up a bunch of jobs to keep her and Jess afloat was sweet, as they live on a rough council estate. I'm so happy that they nailed this accuracy in this aspect, as it really shows the struggles that single mothers have bringing up and doing what's best for their children. Tracy being well known amongst the estate, presenting how long she's been there, were great, and the photos and references to Tracy Beaker Returns and the story of Tracy Beaker were brilliant, with a photo hung up of a cast picture from the story of Tracy Beaker from either series 3 or 4, showing Tracy's flat in the background. We also see Jess's bookshelf of numerous books, including some Jacqueline Wilson ones and Tracy's book she published at the beginning of Tracy Beaker Returns. That cover has been redesigned, which resembles a lot of the Jacqueline Wilson Tracy Beaker book covers. The school Jess going to, being called Duke Primary School, I feel like was a deliberate name drop to the lovable character of Duke in the story of Tracy Beaker. Cam, from what we can see so far, is very much of a lovely importance to the series, with her fostering more children since Tracy, which I found to be so sweet. I love the scene where Cam and Jess list the many other attempts that Tracy's had in finding a lover since leaving Tracy's dad, who we still don't know the identity of, but is most likely, in my opinion, to be Seth, who appeared as Tracy's lover around the end of Tracy Beaker Returns. All we know of this mysterious identity is that Tracy and Jess completely disregarding and cut him out of his life, and that he was a cheat that cheated on Tracy with numerous girls. I love the character of Jess Beaker, that's played brilliantly by Emma Davis, and I love that she's fully immersed into her mum's biopic of her childhood in care, which I found to be so sweet. And while it's not entirely taking the easily loose-tempered trait like her mum, when she does lose it, it's very much like her mother. Jessie's enemy Tyrone at the beginning of the episode appeared to be the equivalent of Tracy and Justine, but we are still to find more of that character later on in the series. Jess not happy with Tracy and Sean's relationship, and his arrogant persona and lifestyle showed brilliantly, with clashes quite frequently between the two, as all Jess is wanting is for her mum to be happy, which is why she goes along with it, but can't help but speak her mind, which I found was really good. I was worried really for the character of Sean, that being a character I thought would make this series quite dated in regards to being aware of social media, and also going for that unlikable dick character that Tracy just unfortunately falls for. I actually sympathised with him being a care kid, and implied as an old friend of Tracy's, he truly cares and wants to love both of them, but the lifestyles of him and the Beaker girls appear to be very different. Sean proposing to Tracy was a brilliant ending, and whilst it is said by Jess that they have been out on many trips off screen to get the two more closer with each other, as we couldn't see the relationship develop more on screen due to the 3-episode restriction, made it a little bit harder for me to get emotionally invested. I must say that I also love the soundtrack to this series, with many inklings to the original theme tune within the soundtrack, and it also just overall reminded me of the soundtrack of Tracy Beaker Returns and how they used original music and not dated music like the Dumping Ground usually does. I adored the remix of the theme tune with what it appears to be Kesha White actually coming back to perform this. Episode 2, starting with the continuation of the cliffhanger. I love that it's rather than Tracy speaking for herself and accepting the proposal, she lets Jess decide for her, showing how Tracy puts Jess's priorities over her own. The girls then singing to Barbie Girl in the pink car that Sean gifted her and dubbing over Barbie with Beaker was so sweet. Tracy meeting with Justine Littlewood again was brilliant, seeing as whilst the two not directly show hate to each other, you can still see that presence in the room. The name drops to Jenny, Adele and Peter from Tracy Beaker series 1 and 2 was really good, and a visible reference of the name Jackie, referring to, I think, Jackie Hopper, was just brilliant. Tracy Beaker also last seen in the film, coming back for a couple of scenes, one being with the buffet with the Beakers. Cam and Sean were great, as we still find that Carly is still on the level of not earning Tracy's trust nor love, as Carly seems to be merely there for the money that Tracy will be accustomed to when she gets married to Sean. Tracy still having that pent-up aggression towards her, and still considering Cam as a real mum was sweet. See more into Tyrone, Jesse's schoolmate, having a rough family background with items being sold by her mum's boyfriend for, I think it is implied, drugs or alcohol, which I felt was quite mature. Tyrone, after putting himself down about football, Jess attempts to comfort him by showing him Sean's first pair of trainers and showing how his career started from there, until they discover floods of texts and calls from a contact on Sean's other phone named Jay, where we then find that Sean is a lot more close to Justine than we all originally thought. Episode 3 is by far the most emotional of the other two, with after Jess being caught by Tracy checking Sean's phone again to see if there's any more texts. Tracy then finds out, to where she shows some initial anger as she thumps the wall, which was heartbreaking, as Jess pleads for her to not hurt herself, showing that this may have been a past occurrence. Jess and Tracy then head back to their old flat, having the condition of the flat declining since they've been away with mould that's returned in the top corner of the roof flat. Tracy falling into essentially a depressive state after feeling so heartbroken was honestly just so mature to end up moving back in with Cam until Tracy can get over this unfortunate state. After Jess goes up to give Tracy some tea, she later confides in her and just expresses to Jess about the struggles of being an adult and how there will be rough patches in life. After Sean apologises sincerely and asks if they would be able to start again, we then cut to a wedding that isn't actually Tracy and Sean's, but Cam and Jessie's school teacher, which I found to be so emotional, as the character of Cam was always intended to be a lesbian, so them finally getting round and confirming this was amazing. Jess and Sean staying on good terms and not getting back together were nice, though then we are then greeted to the odd return of the character of Peter from series 1 with a recast. I think due to the recast of the character, his return took me out of any investment of any implication they were trying to do with perhaps hooking Tracy and him up together. Also, I can't believe though that out of all the other characters they chose him. We could have seen the inclusion of Elaine or Mike. The series ends so lovingly with Tracy and Jess finding happiness together at the seaside, so when we are then greeted to a to be continued title card thing, which I'm very intrigued to see if they have been given the green light to a second series. What's before, I didn't have expectations high with a second series, not knowing what much they could do with it. There is so much that they could explore next series with more returning cast, as one of the big things why I was so excited about this was seeing how enthusiastic, even though not being actually in the series, but how supportive they was, the buddy cast of Tracy Beaker returns and the story Tracy Beaker were with this series. So bringing back more returning cast would be such a delight to see. I'd love to see the return of Justine again, as whilst the scenes that we got between her and Tracy was great, I felt like there were a lot of things unexplained and some things to explore, like her inability to have children, unfortunately, that was talked about by herself, but also how jealous she is around Tracy and Jess, perhaps wishing to be a mum herself. In conclusion, My Mum Tracy Beaker is one of CBBC's finest shows after recent years, as shows that air nowadays I don't think are the best quality that used to air on the channel back in the day. Thank you all for watching. What did you think of this series? Would you like to see a second series? If so, who would you like to see return and why? Thanks for watching and have a good day.